Welcome to On Point by Target River, the podcast where strategy meets execution with a little fun. I'm your host, Brian, and each episode will break down what actually works in marketing, sales, and growth so you can stay sharp, focused, and always on point. Let's dive in. If you know me at all, one of the things you know about me is I love sports. Okay, I have since I think I was 3 or 4 years old when I first started watching college football. And the addiction has only grown. I love watching all sorts of sports. I love talking about sports. I love playing sports. One of the things, for those of you that have any connection to sports, know there are those that pad stats for the glory of themselves, and there's those that build a team up, right? Maybe they're not the star per se of the team. Maybe they are, but even that star builds the team up and helps everybody else rise, okay? I love debating people that talk about LeBron James, okay? In fact, he's in the news again right now because he's holding the NBA ransom by not telling people which team he wants to sign up for. So the NBA can't launch the new schedule for this coming season because it's contingent upon key matchups for certain TV schedules, games on the holidays, and things like that, right? I would argue that he is not a builder. He is a stat patter, okay? And I know those of you that think he's the GOAT and the greatest are going to probably comment all sorts of things about this. I personally think Michael Jordan's better, but that's neither here or there, okay? The key is, as we think about ourselves and our organizations and our own careers, are we stat patters? Or are we contributors that actually make a meaningful impact in the organization we work at, okay? So what I mean by that, we have, and I'll give you a couple examples within our organization. So we're a virtual-based work model, okay? About 12 years ago when we launched Target River, I knew that it would be arrogant to think that all the most talented marketers in the world happen to live in San Diego, California, where Target River launched, okay? That would obviously be silly and dumb to think that. So we decided, wait a second, let's hire the most talented, best people regardless of where they live. Let's be novel. And at first we were thinking, well, the United States. And we realized, okay, again, that's a stereotype of the arrogant American to say that we have the best talent of X, Y, or Z. So we've taken a global perspective since day one when we're interviewing and bringing people on, regardless of whether they're a video editor, a copywriter, an ad specialist, a project manager, an email specialist, or other role. Who's the best out there that we can get to be a part of our team? Now, part of that comes into play, and this just happened this past week. We needed to add another video editor to our team. And we had several people that got referred to us by existing teammates who were like, hey, I know someone else that I think would be a great fit. Let me invite them to apply. But we also had hundreds of other people that applied within about a 36-hour period. So we had a huge database of potential candidates to review and interview. And probably out of those 600-700 that applied, 40 to 50 have the senior level skills that we demand and require to be an editor on our team, okay? But that doesn't mean all 50 or 60 or so of them are actually the right person to be a part of our team and our culture. And here's why. Yes, skills are important. Yes, you need to be at an expert level in what you do, but that's only step one. Next, who are you in terms of a communicator, an innovator, a thinker, a collaborator, a supporter, right? Who are you in terms of communicating is so important, especially in a virtual environment, right? Let's say we all worked in the same office, it'd be a little easier if I needed to go over and edit in a video with the video editor, and I could just walk over and sit next to them at the desk, and we could talk through each of the little changes. It obviously is a little bit harder when you work virtually, but since we've been at it for a while, we've got some great systems in place that make that easier. But it is a little easier to isolate yourself in an organization that is virtually based, okay? That cannot sustain itself in an organization like ours if we're trying to collaborate and work as a team to delight our customers. Okay. So one of the next things we have to think about is who are they or how are they as a communicator? Over the phone, over video calls, over chat? Do they disappear for hours on end and just say, oh, I was busy, I missed this and that? That type of person, and that does happen on occasion. It's a legitimate thing. But if that's a consistent pattern, that's not someone that's a right fit for our organization at least. And I imagine many of yours as well. One of the other things too, as we think about our organizations is, does this individual have a me versus we attitude? Okay. If you have a me attitude, and I'm not saying all selfishness, so to speak, is bad in your career, but you're focused strictly on your schedule, your time, your work balance, your income, and not the impact to the team, to the client, and so forth. Okay. So that's challenges. We onboarded a new client recently, and we had a ton of creative to do in a very short period of time. It was more creative than the project management team that was handling this client could do on their own. So the alarm got pulled, so to speak, and other creatives jumped in to say, hey, I can help write this copy, or I can design this, or I can help with the video production here. So multiple creatives jumped in and collaborated together to get what would have taken that team a few weeks to do in about 4 days. Okay. I loved seeing that as the owner of the company and seeing the collaborative spirit and stuff. I also did take mental note, I must say, on a couple of individuals that didn't jump in right away and say, I will help. Doesn't mean they're going to get fired, but it's just a little reminder of maybe their approach to work versus others on the team. Okay. So when we're thinking about this too, one of the other things that's interesting, how many of you work in organizations where your pay raises are based on time served, time worked in the company or the organization, right? Where it's a traditional model where, it's my anniversary, I get an automatic 2 or 3 or 5 or 8% pay raise. Okay, that is a traditional model. However, what have you done in the past year to justify or substantiate getting that pay raise? I would argue that some people haven't done anything, where there's others who have justified a pay raise in a much shorter period of time. Or in an economy where a lot of people, in fact, hundreds of thousands of people are losing jobs around the world, maybe that pay raise is actually not a pay cut at this time, because you are a contributor and you are helping the team grow and you're supporting clients and such. So this is a little bit of a career coaching episode, but also in a career or job hunting episode. Okay, as you think about who you are as an individual, if you are at an organization and you want to stay there, think about how you can be a supporter to lift your teammates and not just a stat patter that's looking for sole self-gain. Eventually, that's going to get sniffed out, and you probably are going to be invited to see the door, or if there are cuts occur and they're looking at one or another, you might just lose your job, even though technically maybe you're the better at your role, but you don't support and help the organization. And as you think about this, and I appreciate as an owner that pay raises are important if the economy allows it, right? Or a lack of a pay cut is important, even if other organizations are putting out pay cuts or firing people. Here's some things as you go in there and you're building that case for that promotion or that pay raise or other. What have you done to be a contributor, not only to the work and the clients that you're serving, but to your teammates, to the health of the organization, the collaboration and stuff? What are you showing in terms of true value? Because when you have that type of value, people love that. People want to associate with that. I would love to say and take the credit that I've created this culture in Target River. I've definitely played a role and a part of it, but a lot of our culture of collaboration and teamwork is because we have made the right choice more often than not to invite people to be a part of that team or our team that have that philosophy. And those where we've made the mistake and the errors, we've asked them to leave. Now, Some of them had great skills, but they didn't have the right fit. And some of them in our team haven't had as good of skills as others, but we've worked hard with them to help them grow because they had the willingness, the desire to learn and to grow. In fact, this morning when I was at the office, I was communicating with one of our ad specialists, and they were working on the target audiences for one of our clients. So if you've listened to an episode before, there's 3 pillars of that. There's the geography, there's the demographics, and then there's the much more complicated portion called the psychographics. What's their intent? What's their interest? What are they looking for? What's their desires? All these different layers have to go into that ever important psychographic category. Now, this ad specialist has been very loyal. They've been with the company for multiple years, but this is an area where sometimes they have needed more help than I thought they should, or have made some mistakes in the past. I was so pleased to see their progress and growth. They really nailed it when it came to this psychographic category. And this was a complicated campaign with 5 different audiences that we were trying to target. So it was a few pages worth of psychographic targeting that they had put together. And I complimented them on their growth. Okay. That's an example of an individual that has taken to heart the suggestions and the correction that has been served with them in the past, and is growing and building and loyal and saying, hey, I want to help ensure that I'm contributing at an even greater level. So when it comes time and we do have the ability to offer additional raises, who do you think is going to be on that consideration list? This individual, because they've taken the time and effort to help upskill and grow themselves. So as we think about our careers and we take our little final takeaway from this episode is, what am I actually doing that's making a meaningful difference and an impact? Am I that individual that's out there for my own glory? I know many of you probably watched the World Cup over the past month and a half. I am a fan a little bit of football or American soccer, but one of the things that I loved was seeing all the different types of players, right? And you've got some individuals that many would say were padding their stats, right? Many people think Messi's the greatest player ever. Many people are like, yeah, but he gets most of his goals against the lower tier countries. Many people would argue that Ronaldo is the greatest player. But then you sit there and you go, wow, there are a couple matches where his own teammates didn't even pass him the ball. So I don't want to create too much of a debate here, but my point being, we saw great examples of camaraderie and teammates and working together and defending each other and supporting each other and coming to each other's back. And we saw examples of individuals that were out there that maybe were out for their own glory. So think about it, self-evaluate. If you are one of those individuals that's awesome and has incredible skills, but maybe isn't as good of a teammate, or isn't as willing to share or help or help focus on the clients, on the results that you're having, it's perfect time to take a check from the neck up and decide how you want to progress in your career and who you want to be out there. Thanks for listening to On Point by Target River. If you're ready to grow your organization with real strategy that generates meaningful results, visit targetriver.com and connect with our team today. Stay focused, stay winning, and stay on point. We'll see you next time.